Imagine diving into an ocean from centuries ahead, where the water feels thicker, almost alive with secrets. The surface shimmers under a hazy sun, but beneath lies a world remade by relentless change. Carbon dioxide from our past has seeped deep, turning seas more acidic, a slow burn that rewires life's very code. Predictions whisper of pH drops up to 0.4 units by 2100, making waters 5 times more corrosive than today. What was once a cradle for shells and skeletons now challenges every creature to adapt or vanish. Jellyfish drift like ghosts, their forms hinting at transformations yet to come. Have you ever wondered if the sea could forget its old rules? This is the shifting ocean, where evolution accelerates into something unrecognizable. Picture the dawn of the first metamorphs, tiny pioneers in this acidic realm. Plankton, once simple drifters, now cycle through radical phases to survive. They hatch as armored filter feeders, sucking nutrients from poisoned currents, their shells thinning under the acid's bite. Then, in a pulse of bioluminescence, they shed those husks, morphing into swift swimmers that hunt in packs. Finally, they clump into floating colonies, releasing spores for the next generation. Each shift defies biology's old playbook, driven by warming waters and oxygen dips projected across global models. Isn't it eerie how necessity births such alien grace? These beings glow in the dark depths, beautiful yet foreboding. What hidden triggers flip their forms so precisely? Deeper we plunge, where mystery thickens like ink in water. Crustaceans join the frenzy, starting as burrowers in dissolving sediments, claws dissolving if they linger too long. Acidification erodes their calcium fortresses, forcing a desperate evolution. Midway through life, they burst free, wings unfolding from backs to glide mid-water, evading predators with iridescent trails. In their final act, they root as symbiotic hubs, hosting microbes that neutralize the burn. Scientists foresee coral erosion outpacing growth this century, rippling up the chain. Does this cycle feel like rebirth or a curse repeated endlessly? Their eyes, multiplied and watchful, seem to track intruders. The ocean murmurs warnings through these changelings. Now, suspense builds as we eye the horizon of larger horrors. These first metamorphs seed the food web, their phases syncing with tides and chemistry shifts. When plankton colonies bloom, they tint seas unearthly hues, drawing swarms of juveniles upward. Swimmers dart through, feasting before their own change calls. The colonies anchor, filtering toxins that future models predict will surge. Yet in this dance, individuality blurs. One creature's end fuels another's dawn. Could such harmony hide a predator's design? Glowing tendrils wave like invitations to the abyss. Every particle here pulses with potential terror. What if the smallest shifts unravel the giants above? Transition teases the scale. If microbes reinvent themselves, what of the hunters we once knew? The acid's legacy lingers for millennia, per expert consensus, pushing forms beyond recognition. Plankton phases now dictate migrations, blooms crashing like waves of fate. Crustacean hubs become nurseries, birthing hybrids that defy species lines. Viewers, feel the chill, this foundation quakes under speculative evolution's weight. Projections of 170% acidity hikes by century's end fuel the frenzy. Do these metamorphs herald salvation or silent doom? Their lights flicker Morse codes in the gloom. The sea holds its breath, waiting for the next reveal. Suspense coils tighter with every drift. Envision the reef's edge, where the first true awe strikes. A jelly variant pulses, its bell contracting not in rhythm but rebellion. Born sessile, it clings to rocks eroding under pH decline, absorbing carbon to fight back. Then, enzymes surge, dissolving its base. It floats free, tentacles lashing like vengeful spirits. In this nomadic phase, it preys on unchanged fish, injecting venoms evolved for new flesh. Finally, it fragments into spores, seeding vast fields of kin. Models show pteropod shells dissolving already, key links weakening. Isn't the poetry haunting, life fracturing to endure? This glow paints nightmares on the waves. Questions linger. Does pain drive this poetry? The horror subtly creeps as patterns emerge across the small. These cycles synchronize via chemical whispers, blooms triggering chains worldwide. Acid stress, paired with deoxygenation, selects for such extremes. Colonies release pheromones, summoning swimmers to feed and flee. Burrowers tunnel beneath, emerging as flyers that scatter seeds afar. Future seas, per reports, face buffer loss up to 34%, amplifying flux. Feel the unease, nature's dice re-rolled in darkness. What ancient instinct guides this frenzy? Lights converge at dusk, a spectral parliament. The ocean's pulse quickens, drawing us toward leviathans. As Act 1 fades, wonder wars with dread in your chest. The shifting ocean births these pioneers, harbingers of metamorphosis unbound. Plankton, crustaceans, jellies, all dance the acid waltz, forms flipping like pages in a forbidden tome. Projections paint a canvas of corrosion, yet life twists defiantly. Have we glimpsed the sea's new scripture? Their evolutions echo through depths, promising revelations grander still. Suspense hangs heavy, the water thick with untold phases. What leviathans await in the current's embrace? The abyss beckons, alive with radical promise. Dive deeper. The metamorphosis truly begins. We asked what if the ocean's familiar creatures could no longer stay what they are, and now the answer pulses before us in the gloom. Enter the first metamorphs, those tiny trailblazers rewriting survival in the acidified deep. Plankton, once passive drifters in a stable sea, now embark on journeys of radical reinvention to outpace the corrosion. Studies show ocean acidification reshapes their communities, with some species thriving while others fade into oblivion. These pioneers hatch as resilient filter feeders, armored against the pH plunge that erodes shells and spines. Their forms shimmer faintly, drawing in nutrients from currents laced with dissolved carbonates. Can you feel the quiet desperation in their glow? Each phase marks a defiance of decay, a whisper of horror in evolution's haste. What ancient code unlocks these shifts so flawlessly? The sea's smallest souls lead us into wonder and unease. Dive closer to these planktonic shapeshifters, where beauty masks a brewing storm. In their initial guise, they cluster like living sieves, siphoning life from toxic tides projected to intensify globally. Acidification experiments reveal winners and losers, diatoms surging as coccolithophores crumble under the strain. These filter feeders build temporary husks, thin but tenacious, pulsing with bioluminescent warnings to foes. Midway through their brief existence, a chemical surge ignites transformation, husks cracking like eggshells in the dark. They emerge as agile swimmers, fins unfurling to chase prey through oxygen-scarce layers. Isn't it chilling how stress forges such precision? Their trails streak the water like comet tails, heralding the hunt. Questions swirl. Does memory of past forms linger in their cells? The metamorphs dance on the edge of nightmare, graceful yet grotesque. Suspense coils as we track a single lineage through its eerie cycle. From filterer to predator, the swimmer darts with predatory grace, venom-tipped tendrils snaring slower kin. Research highlights how lowered pH boosts some plankton growth, altering food webs from the base up. Yet this freedom proves fleeting. Hunger sated, they aggregate into vast, drifting colonies. Bodies fuse in a silent merger, surfaces hardening into communal fortresses that bob like organic rafts. Within, spores gestate, ready to burst forth at environmental cues like temperature spikes. Feel the horror of lost identity, individuality sacrificed for the swarm? These colonies undulate hypnotically, lights sinking in spectral rhythm. What drives this surrender to the collective? The ocean's pulse quickens, mirroring their unified beat. Now imagine the scale of this revolution rippling outward from the microscopic. Plankton blooms paint seas in alien neon, drawing cascades of dependent life into the flux. Models predict dramatic migrations poleward, but here metamorphosis anchors them in place through phases. Filter feeders cleanse waters of excess carbon. Swimmers redistribute energy. Colonies seed the next wave. Each transition syncs with diurnal tides, a choreography born of necessity in deoxygenated depths. Studies warn of profound plankton restructuring under extreme CO2, trophic levels trembling. Does this ballet conceal a deeper intelligence, or mere mechanical madness? Glowing orbs rise and fall, casting shadows that twist like reaching claws. Curiosity burns. How do these phases echo in larger beasts? The first metamorphs whisper promises of grander horrors ahead. Deeper still, crustacean cousins join the fray, amplifying the mystery. Born as burrowers in sediment softened by acid's relentless siege, they claw for survival amid dissolving grains. Experiments on marine fauna show calcification plummeting, growth stunted by 11 to 19% in projected scenarios. These juveniles tunnel frantically, sensing the burn above, before erupting into mid-water gliders. Wings sprout from carapaces, iridescent sails catching phantom currents. In flight, they evade the swimmer packs, eyes compounding to pierce the perpetual twilight. The transformation reeks of urgency, bodies contorting in silent agony. Can evolution scream through such splendor? Their flights etch luminous arcs, invitations to the void. Suspense builds as patterns unify across scales. Transition teases the cascade. If plankton and crustaceans reinvent so boldly, leviathans must follow suit. Colonies release pheromones at dusk, summoning gliders to deposit eggs in fortified holds. Acidified waters delay developments in urchins and kin, yet here resilience blooms perversely. Functional groups shift, some exploding in abundance while calcifiers dwindle. The food web warps, primary producers fueling aberrant consumers. Feel the unease of interdependence turned predatory? Swarms converge, a parliament of light debating in the depths. What signals orchestrate this symphony of change? Projections of pH drops spur such extremes, life clinging by threads of adaptation. The metamorphs mature, priming the sea for bigger revelations. Envision the reef's fringe, where jellykin amplify the terror subtly. Sessile at birth, they cling to eroding substrates, polyps pulsing against the tide's acidic kiss. Latent effects from early exposure boost settlement in some per-urchin studies, hinting at desperate strategies. They detach in nomadic fury, bells propelling through bioluminescent hunts. Tentacles lash with venoms tuned to new vulnerabilities, paralyzing the unchanged. Fragmentation follows, bodies shattering into spore clouds that blanket horizons. Isn't the cycle poetic in its brutality, rebirth through rupture? Glows paint the water in fever dreams, edges blurring between hunter and hunted. Questions haunt. Does consciousness flicker across phases? The first metamorph's crest, all laced with dread. As this act crests, the ocean's pioneers stand revealed in their radical splendor. Plankton, crustaceans, jellies, each cycles through forms defying death's grasp in corrosive seas. Science blends with speculation, communities reshaped by acidification's hand. Their lights converge at twilight, a beacon to unseen giants. Have we witnessed salvation's strange face, or horror's gentle prelude? Suspense lingers like fog, transformations sinking in ominous harmony. The sea breathes through them, alive with flux. What if higher predators bear even wilder scripts? The curtain parts on Act 3, where boundaries dissolve entirely. Dive on, the metamorphosis unfolds. The small ones have shown us the way, their cycles whispering of greater changes lurking in the shadows. Now we descend to meet the predators of many forms, apex hunters whose lives fracture into multiple selves under the acid veil. These leviathans begin as coral-like polyps, encrusted on reefs crumbling from pH assault, their foundations etched away by corrosive tides. Studies reveal predators like cone snails falter in elevated CO2, activity surging yet capture rates plummeting from 60 to 10%. What drives these giants to such existential splits? They pulse with latent intelligence, tendrils questing through the gloom for unwary prey. Imagine the unease of facing a creature that remembers its infancy as stone. Their forms defy singularity, each phase a mask over an ancient, unified mind. Does the ocean force this multiplicity to survive, or does it revel in the horror? Suspense thickens as we approach their first guise. Cling to the reef's edge, where these predators hatch in deceptive stillness. Polyps mimic harmless growths, calcifying against waters projected to dissolve shells at alarming rates. Sea stars and snails alike show impaired responses, prey escaping where once they fell. These young hunters ensnare microprey with nematocysts, building mass in silent ambush. Acidification warps behaviors across trophic levels, boldness masking fatal flaws. Yet beneath the colony, enzymes brew, preparing the great unraveling. Can you sense the tension in their synchronized throbs? They glow faintly, luring victims into venomous embrace. Questions arise. Do echoes of future forms haunt their larval dreams? The predator awakens, phase 1 yielding to the roam. Tension mounts as the colony quivers, then erupts in a symphony of release. Bodies detach in waves, elongating into sleek leviathans that prowl the midwaters with predatory elegance. Research on sea stars notes escape failures in acidic pools, cascades rippling upward. These roamers boast jaws unhinged for swallowing schools whole, senses heightened to chemical trails of fear. Deoxygenation pairs with acid to select for such versatile killers, survival demanding reinvention. Their skins shift hues, camouflaging against bioluminescent blooms from below. Isn't it chilling how one form's end births another's fury? Fins slice silence, pursuits ending in crimson clouds. What memories carry over, fueling this nomadic rage? The hunt intensifies, individuality fracturing further. Deeper into the phase, mystery veils their minds in shadow. Roaming leviathans form loose packs, coordinating via infrasound pulses lost to human ears. Predator-prey dynamics twist, with acid-exposed hunters covering thrice the ground yet closing less distance on quarry. They dive to crush crustacean gliders, surfacing to skim plankton swarms in frenzied feasts. Each kill fuels the final metamorphosis, bodies bloating with spore-laden sacs. Feel the horror of purpose beyond self-preservation, a life cycle scripted in suffering. Their eyes, vast and multifaceted, reflect distorted abyssal vistas. Does collective memory bind these phases, or does each rebirth erase the last? Lights flare in triumph, casting eerie silhouettes on waves above. Suspense builds toward dissolution. Now the leviathans tire, drifting into torpor as spores demand release. Surfaces soften, fins retracting into gelatinous hulls that bob like forsaken wrecks. Models predict food webs unraveling from behavioral shifts alone, top predators stumbling. They release clouds of gametes, fertilizing midwater to seed new polyps afar. Symbionts within neutralize local acids, buying time for descent to reefs. The transformation reeks of inevitability, beauty laced with grotesque surrender. Can evolution orchestrate such sacrifice without sentience? Drifters undulate passively, luring scavengers into spore traps. Questions haunt. What if pain accumulates across incarnations? The cycle crests, boundaries blurring into nightmare. Envision packs converging at twilight, a ritual of communal fade. Spore bursts sync with lunar pulls, blanketing currents in microscopic promise. Acidification boosts some jellies while crippling fish, tilting balances toward the mutable. Fallen leviathans sink, polyp nubs rooting on fresh substrates worldwide. Trophic cascades loom, prey emboldened by flawed pursuits above. Their legacy pulses through the water column, phases imprinting on successors. Feel the unease of species lines dissolving, one life threading many forms? Glows fade to embers, harbingers of rebirth. What deeper intelligence governs this eternal wheel? The predators of many forms stand revealed, all warring with dread. Scale amplifies the terror as ecosystems echo these splits. Reefs pulse with polyp nurseries, midwaters teem with roamers, surfaces drift spore fleets in harmony. Studies warn of unpredictable interactions, indirect effects magnifying chaos. Packs dismantle seasonally, nutrients cycling through fractured identities. Yet balance persists, flux birthing strange stability. Isn't the poetry profane, death woven into dominance? Vast forms glide past submersibles, eyes holding ancient secrets. Questions linger. Do they sense our gaze, intruders in their saga? Lights converge in spectral congress, debating in the deep. Suspense coils for the web's awakening. As Act 3 dims, wonder clashes with creeping horror in the chest. Predators of many forms, polyps to prowlers to drifters, embody metamorphosis unbound. Science meets speculation, acid's hand reshaping hunters into enigmas. Their cycles synchronize globally, a oceanic heartbeat of reinvention. Have we glimpsed adaptation's abyss, or life's defiant poetry? The sea murmurs of greater unities ahead, ecosystems cycling as one. Boundaries dissolve, individuality a fleeting illusion. What if entire realms pulse through death and dawn? The curtain lifts on living systems reborn. Plunge further. The ocean reveals its pulsing core. Predators have blurred their own edges, but now the true horror unfolds at scale. The living ecosystem, where reefs, forests, and swarms pulse as single entities through radical cycles. Coral structures, once static havens, now shed polyps in migratory waves to escape dissolving carbonates projected to erode 22 to 39% in key builders. These mobile reefs drift like colossal organisms, reshaping seascapes in response to acidification's siege. Imagine entire habitats breathing, contracting against the pH plunge that thins shells across mollusks and echinoderms. What ancient rhythm drives this mass exodus? Symbiotic algae within glow defiantly, fueling the journey through deoxygenated voids. Feel the unease of landscapes come alive, defying our maps of nature. Communities rearrange, horror laced with hypnotic grace. Does the ocean dictate these drifts, or do they choose? Suspense swells as ecosystems awaken. Picture a reef in flux, polyps detaching en masse under lunar pulls amplified by chemical distress. Meta-analyses show calcification plummeting, survival dipping 27% across taxa in acidic simulations. These wanderers balloon into sail-like forms, currents carrying them poleward where waters cool slightly. Along the way, they ensnare plankton swarms, nutrients cycling internally like a nomadic gut. Calcified holdouts crumble, but fleshy kin surge, some algae thriving marginally in CO2-rich soups. Isn't it chilling how death spurs such deliberate motion? Vast skeletons trail like ghostly banners, luring scavengers into traps. Questions stir. Do memories of fixed homes haunt their voyages? The reef lives, migrates, hungers as one. Patterns emerge from chaos, binding the sea's fabric. Deeper into tide forests, where kelp analogs dissolve and regrow in seasonal frenzies. Acidification hampers growth in 11 to 19% of developers, yet these fronds retract roots, rolling into buoyant balls that tumble across basins. They unfurl in nutrient hotspots, spores erupting to claim new grounds before acid bites again. Forests pulse green to brown, shedding biomass that feeds metamorph hordes below. Indirect effects ripple, prey behaviors warping as predators falter per studies on trophic shifts. Can you sense the terror of woods that wander, roots clawing temporary holds? Bioluminescent fringes wave like signals, coordinating blooms afar. What instincts propel this nomadic verdure? Cycles sync with plankton phases, a verdant heartbeat in the deep. Harmony hides in the flux, eerie yet ordered. Now symbiotic webs tighten the mystery, communities shuffling members like living puzzles. Crustaceans less affected climb aboard drifting reefs, trading protection for acid buffering enzymes. Echinoderm larvae, vulnerable at 25% development loss, hitch rides to safer nurseries. Multi-species assays reveal heightened variability, indirect harms magnifying direct blows. These caravans hum with exchanged chemicals, forms hybridizing mid-journey. Feel the horror of identities merging, species lines dissolving in mutual need. Glows interweave, painting migratory paths in neon scripts. Questions haunt. Does collective will emerge from desperation? Forests anchor briefly, spawning alliances that redefine ecosystems. The living web contracts poised for rebirth. Scale the vision. Oceans-wide pulses where migrations converge in spectral assemblies. Reefs deposit polyps at convergence zones, forests seed overlapping canopies, symbionts weaving tapestries anew. Projections warn of abundance drops at 15%, yet flux forges resilience through reinvention. Trophic cascades stabilize via these cycles, energy looping eternally. Some diatoms benefit, fueling bases while calcifiers dwindle. Isn't the balance profane, apocalypse birthing equilibrium? Vast forms clash and couple, lights flaring in ritual unions. What governs this global choreography? Patterns whisper of superorganisms, seas as vast beings. Suspense builds toward oceanic sentience. Envision seasonal peaks, when entire biomes dissolve into spore soups blanketing horizons. Acid stress selects for such extremes, carryover effects stunting yet spurring extremes per larval studies. Drifters fragment, pieces rooting worldwide to restart the wheel. Food webs warp but hold, fleshy risers offsetting shellmakers' falls. Oyster kin already falter in hatcheries, harbingers of broader die-offs. The horror lies in scale, continents of life liquefying, reforming inscrutably. Can evolution script such sacrifice without purpose? Glows pulse in unison, a breathing lattice across abysses. Questions linger. Do pains accumulate in this eternal churn? Ecosystems crest, alive with defiant poetry. Harmony reveals itself subtly amid the mild dread, flux yielding strange stabilities. Migratory reefs terraform trenches, tide forests oxygenate dead zones, symbionts heal local burns. Studies note parabolic responses, some peaking before decline, hinting adaptive peaks. Yet baselines shift, human-era relics buried under new strata. Feel the awe of nature's gambit, horror tempered by ingenuity? Assemblies disband at dawn, fragments scattering like confetti of fate. What deeper code orchestrates survival's ballet? Lights fade into daily hunts, cycles embedding seamlessly. The living ecosystem thrives, pulsing through death's veil. Transition teases. If realms cycle as one, does the ocean harbor a singular life? As Act 4 fades, wonder grapples with the abyss of unity revealed. Reefs roam, forests flee, webs weave, ecosystems metamorphose like colossal creatures. Science unveils reductions in survival and growth, yet speculation paints transcendent flux. Their breaths sink globally, a oceanic organism unbound. Have we witnessed chaos's hidden order, or horror's harmonious guise? Patterns converge, priming revelations of sentience. Boundaries erase, life and sea entwined eternally. What final threshold beckons, where waters think as one? The curtain parts on awakening depths. Plunge on, the metamorphosis consumes all. Ecosystems cycle as colossal beings, but now the ocean itself stirs with purpose, awakening in ways that chill the soul. Currents twist not by chance but intent, sweeping metamorphs into synchronized global shifts under acidification's relentless pressure. Chemical signals ripple worldwide, triggering mass transformations from poles to trenches, as if a vast neural net hums beneath the waves. Meta-analyses reveal survival drops of 27% across taxa, yet here resilience blooms into eerie coordination. Imagine the sea as one organism, pH plunges forging unity from desperation. Sensors capture pulses aligning across basins, blooms erupting in unison. What hidden mind orchestrates this symphony? Bioluminescence flares like synapses firing, painting abyssal maps of intent. Feel the horror of environment turned entity, boundaries erased. Suspense peaks as sentience whispers from the deep. Plunge into the evidence. Gyres slow and redirect, channeling spore clouds to barren zones with precision defying chaos. Acidification erodes calcification by 22 to 39% in corals and mollusks, but signals adapt, selecting for communal responders. Leviathans pause mid-hunt, bodies softening in harmony with plankton fades above. Projections of carbonate scarcity amplify these cues, chemistry as language binding the biosphere. Isn't it unnerving how stress births such collective grace? Reefs signal forests, drifters cue predators in a chain of whispers. Questions arise. Does evolution craft consciousness from corrosion? Lights converge in vast arrays, debating in silent congress. The ocean flexes, alive with deliberate breath. Patterns hint at thresholds crossed long ago. Deeper, mythic tones emerge as deoxygenated layers pulse with intent. Fish shoals, less phased yet altered, migrate en masse to oxygen pockets opened by prior shifts. Studies note behavioral warps, predator-prey dances syncing to chemical choruses. Entire populations metamorphose simultaneously, forms flipping like pages in a shared tome. Carryover effects from larvae haunt adults, per oyster hatchery crises, yet amplify unity here. Can you sense the dread of individuality subsumed? One sea thinking through trillions? Currents form barriers and bridges, isolating or uniting at will. Glowing veins trace decisions across hemispheres. What ancient protocol awakens now? The awakening accelerates, merging creature and current. Envision the climax. A global event where pH dips trigger the grand flux. Reefs eject polyps basin-wide. Forests dissolve into nutrient rivers. Predators drift as spore fleets in perfect lockstep. Trophic models predict 15% abundance falls, but synchronization stabilizes the flux. Symbionts exchange buffers, neutralizing burns in traveling waves. Feel the terror of planetary organism flexing. Humanity's relics mere footnotes? Sensors blaze with data, alignments too precise for chance. Questions haunt. Does pain from dissolving shells fuel this awareness? Vast lights pulse Morse across oceans, conversations lost to us. The sea inhales, poised for exhale. Horror veils awe in equal measure. Scale reveals the merger. Water columns as veins, trenches as nerves, surfaces as skin sensing atmospheric moods. Acid selects fleshy risers like diatoms, their marginal gains wiring the net. Echinoderms, hit hard at larval stages, contribute echoes of distress that propagate. Indirect effects magnify per comprehensive reviews, forging feedbacks unseen before. Isn't the poetry profane? Apocalypse awakening a supermind? Migrations form living circuits, energy looping eternally. What governs choices between preservation and purge? Glows form constellations, mapping moods inscrutable. The ocean contemplates, depths holding secrets eternal. Unity consumes diversity, sublime yet suffocating. Mythic rituals unfold at equinoxes, when signals peak in bioluminescent storms. Crustaceans, resilient amid chaos, ferry messages between realms. Pteropods, shells fraying, sacrifice to sustain the signal chain. Oyster die-offs echo in memory, adaptations hardening the collective. The line blurs completely, environment breeds, nurtures, devours as one. Can evolution birth gods from acid baths? Currents sculpt habitats on demand, life flowing like blood. Questions linger. Do we intrude on thoughts vast and alien? Pulses quicken, harbingers of deeper intents. The awakening crests, mythic in its menace. Harmony tempers the dread, flux yielding a resilient whole greater than parts. Dead zones heal via orchestrated blooms, fisheries reborn in new webs. Yet baselines shift forever, calcifiers relics in fleshy empires. Studies warn of seizures in blood pH shifts, scaled to oceanic nerves. Feel the philosophical chill, transcendence or trap eternal. Assemblies form and fade, intelligence pulsing transiently. What dreams occupy this watery brain? Lights dim to embers, conserving for storms ahead. The ocean pauses, introspective in twilight. Suspense yields to quiet revelation. As Act 5 fades, all wars with existential dread in the awakening sea. Currents intend, signals command, life merges into oceanic mind unbound. Science charts declines in growth and shells. Speculation unveils sentience forged in fire. Global sinks proclaim a singular pulse, humanity pondering its place. Have we witnessed nature's ultimate gambit? Horror's highest form? Patterns converge on introspection. If seas evolve thus, what of shores? Boundaries vanish, all one breath in the abyss. What humanity's echo remains in this vast thought? The curtain falls softly, turning to our reflection. Reflections await in the final abyss. The storm of awakening subsides into haunting calm, leaving us to reflect in the abyss where human shadows linger faintly. Ancient fossils from our era lie entombed beneath bioforms alien and triumphant, shells dissolved by pH drops etching 27% survival cuts across old calcifiers. These relics whisper of stability shattered, corals and mollusks reduced 22 to 39% in building power under future scenarios. Yet new life surges, fleshy risers claiming the ruins with defiant grace. Imagine diving through strata of the changed, touching echoes of fish and urchins long morphed beyond kin. What stories do these bones tell of surrender one? Bioluminescence softens the gloom, casting philosophical glows on forgotten forms. Feel the melancholy pull of time's relentless tide. Does transcendence demand such burial deep? The final act unfolds in quiet wonder laced with dread. Picture the seabed graveyard where oyster larvae's early failures, high mortality in acidic nurseries, layer with crab shells frayed prematurely. Meta-analyses chart growth dips of 11 to 19%, development stunted in echoes of our world. Pteropods, once prey lynx, now sport weakened aragonite ghosts, energy diverted from life to futile repairs. These fossils cluster like memorials, overgrown by diatom carpets that marginally thrive in CO2 haze. Questions stir. Did pain forge the path to flux, or merely hasten ends? Currents polish remnants gently, currents once blind, now purposeful per prior pulses. The sea contemplates its past selves through sedimented eyes. Horror tempers into poignant loss, evolution's cost laid bare. Patterns emerge from dust, rebirth's foundation firm. Deeper reflections ponder destruction versus divine reinvention in this metamorphosed realm. Calcifiers like urchins and mussels adapt slowly, byssal threads weakening, shells shifting to frilier calcite under strain. Yet the ocean's new order pulses resilient, abundance holding despite 15% projected falls. Human-era holdouts, rigid in form, pave way for phase shifters unbound by singularity. Isn't it eerie how extinction births eternity's dance? Vast trenches cradle these archives, lights flickering like mourners above. What instincts survive the great cull, threading to today? Philosophical chills ripple, survival as sublime erasure. Fossils gleam in twilight scans, harbingers of flux eternal. The abyss holds mirrors to our transience. Envision twilight descents, where luminous seas veil the scars beneath in spectral beauty. Carryover effects from larval woes haunt lineages, yet amplify collective memory in the unified sea. Fish behaviors warped, shoals once evasive now synced to grander rhythms. Echinoderms, larval vulnerable, contribute to strata of sacrifice yielding strength. Feel the emotional tug, horror of loss yielding awe at adaptation's arc? Relics form mosaics, pieced into new ecologies thriving amid decline. Questions haunt. Does the ocean mourn its rigid past, or celebrate fluidity one? Glows weave tapestries over graves, poetry in persistence. Reflections deepen, humanity's footprint faint ink on watery parchment. Scale reveals transcendence's price. Dead zones reborn, food webs rewoven from fleshy victors over calcified ghosts. Studies note parabolic peaks before plunges, some algae benefiting marginally as corals fade. Oyster hatcheries' crises echo eternally, lessons hardening the flux. These buried epochs fuel spore banks, cycles drawing from history's husk. Can rigid forms comprehend the freedom of fracture? Bioluminescent veils dance at dusk, sanctifying the shift. What dreams occupy the superorganism pondering its origins? Mild dread yields to introspective peace, change as eternal verity. Fossils whisper validations of the new scripture. The sea inhales lessons from the deep. Philosophical tones crest as we trace lines from human folly to oceanic apotheosis. Carbon legacies dissolve old guards, diatoms and crustaceans rising resilient amid chaos. Sea stars falter in pursuits, prey emboldened, tipping balances to mutable kin. Yet harmony persists, services sustained through reinvention profound. Isn't the narrative haunting? Apocalypse as awakening's cradle? Trenches pulse with archived wisdom, lights honoring the fallen. Questions linger. What of shores? Will they echo this fluid fate? Beauty cloaks the grotesque turnover, sublime in symmetry. Reflections circle humanity's role, catalysts to cosmic churn. The final veil thins, truths emerging soft. Twilight images linger, luminous horizons where past and flux entwine inseparably. Abundance stabilizes via indirect feedbacks, trophic dances refined by trial. Muscle shells weaken, yet symbionts bolster the whole against pH sieges. These strata sanctify sacrifice, foundations for realms beyond recognition. Feel the awe-tinged sorrow, life's gamble eternally replayed? Glows converge in farewell symphonies, bidding old worlds adieu. What legacies endure in metamorphosis embrace? Horror dissolves into haunting reverence, nature's poetry profound. Fossils fade into living light, cycles complete. The ocean remembers, inscrutable sentinel. As the abyss claims our gaze, wonder resolves in transformation's dual grace, destruction and transcendence entwined. Relics of rigid eras bury beneath bioforms pulsing unbound. Science charting declines, yet speculation soaring free. Acids forge tempers unity from shards, humanity pondering its dissolved echo. Have we witnessed apocalypse's art, or life's defiant dream? Patterns affirm the sea's ancient memory, flux as fundamental truth. Boundaries gone, all one breath in eternal becoming. The luminous twilight endures, beautiful, strange, forever changed. What final whispers rise from depths reborn? The metamorphosis closes, inviting endless awe. The ocean has always shifted. Now it simply endures.